Speaking of decentralization, can we talk about this Monero stuff?
Yeah, let's talk about the Monero 51% attack. So let me see if I can
Ooh,
outline
brutal.
the basic facts here. All right, so this is pretty interesting. So this blockchain project called Cubic, Qubic, it's led by kind of an OG in the space. I think this guy was behind NXT. Remember that token, David? Had something to do with IOTA as well,
Is that
2017 or
NXT was
earlier
a
tokens.
Chinese coin?
I don't think so. His
Okay.
name. This guy's Sergey Ivancheglo. Sounds Russian or Eastern European,
Sounds
at least.
sounds
Anyway,
non-scammy.
so they've got this chain Cubic, and it's kind of interesting. They have a consensus mechanism that they call useful proof of work, and basically it's kind of like a merge mining of Monero, but it allows people who do that to also earn like tokens on the Cubic chain, and then also somehow that they're calling it AI integrated mining, and somehow like this process trains the AI Garth, which is their some kind of AI model. Like I'd like to know the etymology of that. Is it Garth from Wayne's World? What are the other famous Garths out there? The world according to Garth? No, it's Garp. Anyway, so AI Garth. Anyway, so they over the last month or so, or maybe a bit, or actually several months, they have been increasing their share of Monero's hash rate. So it started at like 2% in May, moved up to 20-40% in July, and then eventually they got over that 50% threshold, supposedly by early
Allegedly,
August.
by their own
Allegedly,
marketing.
we can get into that, yes, but analysts have seemingly confirmed that the attack appears successful, at least by some measures. So has been some level of chain reorg where they had the potential to censor transactions, mine their own blocks, double spend coins. Now, so it appears to be perhaps like somewhat successful 51% attack, and then basically once they had sort of proven that, I guess you can argue whether they actually did it, but then they came out and said, okay, we're done, we're not doing this anymore, and it was just we were just testing. This is basically a publicity stunt, and I think what my initial reaction here is that what's interesting about this is that it kind of shows that it kind of proves that one of the reasons, or one of the with 51% attacks, they don't make economic sense, right? It's because this organization Cubic, they had 51% of the share of the hash rate. If they do the attack, the price of Monero dumps, which is exactly what happened, and so that hurts them. So kind of bullish on the game theory of 51% attacks not actually playing out as some people might have predicted. What do you have? Any thoughts on this, David?
Lot of thoughts. Monero was my first true love of crypto. It wasn't Bitcoin. Bitcoin is how I got into crypto. But after like a week or 2 weeks of like really digging into it, um, I still remember the feeling of uh, of discovering that Bitcoin is completely and irreversibly in the open, and not private at all. And I was like, what the hell? This is insane. So I went looking and found Monero. And at the time, there were a couple privacy projects that were going around, and Monero was, it seemed like, and still is to this day, the premier privacy project. Um, So I love Monero, and I've used it quite a lot. Now, I've been following this person on X called Xenu. What's his actual handle? Xenu Monero. And he's a really great follow. He's a kind of a Monero diehard evangelist. He's had some disparaging things to say about other privacy projects, which I think is a little especially now that Monero's been attacked and he's going to have to kind of eat shit. So maybe be a little more, I don't know, supportive of other privacy projects, my friend. But anyway, I like this guy a lot. And so it's pretty interesting to see, like, as you were saying, this attack started and people in the Monero community didn't really take it seriously. Even like at the beginning of this week, August like 10th, I was listening to his podcast called Anti-Moon Boy Crypto on YouTube. And he was like, yeah, it's not very big deal. And to get over the current threshold that they're at would require 50% more hash rate than they already have. Right. So, I mean, it like progressively gets harder. And then, yeah, it's gotten pretty darn serious now to the point where they've had a 6-block and a 7-block reorg. And most likely they haven't achieved 51%. And the reason for that is the results that you see on chain have been just that, a 6 and 7-block reorg. Presumably, if they had an actual 51% of the hash rate, they would be able to do a lot more damage. And Cubic was saying things like,
argument is that they purposely didn't damage it. They just wanted to prove that they could do it for publicity.
I think,
and it's not in their best interest to actually really damage it.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. But some of the metrics that they were using to justify their 51% were things like this. 40. So, for example, they were saying this earlier this week. 44 of the past 100 blocks have been mined by them. Right, that's just dumb. Anyone who knows 51. Anything of no. I mean, no. As in, like, so they said earlier this week, like, we have 44% of the hash power. We have a 44% attack because we've mined 44 of the last 100 blocks. Right? That's not how this works. I mean, like, right? You know, mining, there's a element of randomness to who produces blocks. Right. So
yeah, well, if it's 440 out of 1,000, it's the more blocks you the bigger the denominator, the higher the chance that that is actually accurate.
Exactly, but they weren't, as far as I know, they weren't doing that. It was like out of 100. And anyway, it's likely. I think it's. I would imagine it's likely that they didn't reach 51%. That'd just be my guess. Now they can say we stopped short of 51%, or we got to 51% and then we did 2-block reorgs and then started printing empty blocks. This is what they achieved. But guess what, Graham? You can do what they did with as little as 33% of the block space for proof of work. Right? It's called selfish mining. This is kind of the attack that they achieved so far, selfish mining. And so, yeah, I mean, and then that's a serious thing. Like so at least having 33%, probably in the 40s is what I would guess, but at least like 33%, they could start doing what they were doing.
Does it really matter though, whether they reached 30 or 40 or 50?
Yes, like, because it gets way harder. It gets way harder to, like, the move from 30 to 40 isn't a linear amount of hash power, apparently, right? Like it requires.
What?
Really? Apparently, yeah. I mean, so, like, if you have a smaller amount of hash power, like as you go up, it. So, for example, if you have 1% of hash power and you want to get 2%, this is not it's not a linear increase, it's a doubling, right? You need to have a lot more hash power, or you have 1 hash power. If let's say there's 100 hash power and you have 1 and you move to 2, right? It's not just anyway, so it's not like it's just not just a super.
It's because when you add hash power, you're working against yourself, actually, because the entire network's hash power increases, and
Yeah,
so the difficulty goes up. So does Monero have like a difficulty adjustment just like Bitcoin?
probably. I'm not exactly sure. Anyway,
It must.
I'm a little out of my depth on all the details. I'm going by what others were saying, that
Yeah.
it's not
So
specifically
that's my
linear.
point. The details I don't think really matter that much. The narrative here is the interesting thing. So like um
Yeah, I agree.
what what came out of this, it seems, is that you start like people in the Monero community are now like seriously looking at ways to mitigate this. So like if you look in the Monero Research chats, like threads, like look, I didn't actually do this, the machine did it for me, but it told me that people are talking about like ways to work to mitigate this. External finality commitments, example, committing Monero block hashes to Bitcoin, Ethereum to make deep reorgs costlier.
Yeah,
Something about force inclusion, censorship resistant mechanisms, the like those ideas being debated in the research chats. So I think what's interesting here is like this event is kind of forcing people in the POW, the proof of work community, to take this threat seriously and figure out ways to work around it,
yeah, and
which is
I
important
mean,
for Bitcoin, right?
yeah, it's important for Bitcoin.
And other, yeah,
I think it'd be much harder for Bitcoin, and we can go into the reasons why. But like, so there's even from the things that you're talking about. I think from what I was listening to from Zeno Monero, and so it's a couple podcasts he was on, which I think are well worth listening to. Excuse me, but they pointed out a more fundamental problem, which is mining on Monero. Apparently, right now is not profitable or not very profitable. And so you can mine Monero, and most people mine Monero for some kind of like altruistic reason to fight against the man and things like of that nature.
interesting.
But it doesn't incentivize like a whole entire industry like you see with Bitcoin, right? Like just a
Yeah,
massive worldwide industry all around it, because mining Bitcoin is quite profitable. This doesn't exist for Monero, and so um, some of the more fundamental conversations I've heard is making making Monero mining just straight up more profitable. So then you have a lot more hash power behind this. And then this kind of attack wouldn't probably be asymmetrically more difficult. Um, if anything, this kind of shows Bitcoiners, number one, currently, this kind of thing is really not achievable for definitely a project like this, but probably state actors. And number two, Bitcoin could have a problem, a major, major, major problem in the future when the safety budget becomes a concern, because then it'll be way less profitable, right? And it could be a lot easier to do a 51% attack if it had a more Monero like profitability scheme. So
yeah. So
that's
what
that.
we're
Yeah.
seeing here is perhaps a preview of what could happen to Bitcoin, and maybe it serves as a warning that to the Bitcoin community that you actually have to figure something out here. So in that
Yeah.
respect, I see this as kind of like a it's good.
Yeah. I agree. Also, I
Yeah,
think the people in the Monero community also see it as a good thing. Maybe they're coping, right? Because their beloved project is getting pwned. But I this I heard a couple of good things to paraphrase, right? Like if we can't handle an attack from this quote unquote shitty project, then we aren't ready. then we aren't ready to handle state actors. We're not ready to be a serious threat / safe haven from the real dangers. And I think that's true.
Yeah, so
right?
it's a dose of reality. Time to step up your game.
Exactly. Yeah. Can I put on my conspiracy hat? I'm going to try to channel Corbin
Let's
for a
do it.
second.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the ambient level of talk about privacy has ratcheted up, at least that I've detected in the past like year, right? More and more people are talking about privacy. You see it. I've seen it all over the timeline. At the same time, Monero and other privacy coins in the past like 18 months have been delisted from exchanges or made to have KYC AML off ramps specifically for privacy coins, right? Kind of like trying to choke off access to it. And then last week, Nick Fuentes, he talked about Monero on his live stream, and he talked about how awesome it is, right? How great it is, how it's like it's really, really important. Edward Snowden, I think a couple months ago, 3 or 4 months ago, he talked about it in a conference, specifically Monero, how important it is.
Yeah.
And here we have a freaking 51% attack right afterwards. I just feel like it's kind of not a coincidence. That would be my conspiracy thinking.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can buy into that. Like, as we've discussed many times, the powers that be are not going to allow allow privacy tokens. They're not gonna endorse those. They're gonna fight them tooth and nail. They're gonna do everything they can to prevent the growth of privacy tokens.
Do you think then
undermines
there's no
their
future?
Power.
Do you think there's no future for privacy coins then?
No, there is a future.
Really? You think?
Yeah,
You think privacy coins can win against the powers that be?
Yeah, I think they can.
That's very, I don't know, idealistic. I feel like I think if the powers that be really want to quash this, then they will be successful. I don't know.
Yeah, but they're not that organized. And the tech, if the tech is good enough, and the people want it, like they see that how dystopian the financial panopticon has become, then people will finally care about privacy. At least that's my hope.
I don't think that they need to defeat the tech. That's the point, though, is that all they have to really do is choke off the on and off ramps enough for it to never be a used thing. And because most blockchains are transparent,
yeah,
it's very easy. Even if you do like atomic swaps, you can be like, that USDC or that Bitcoin is flagged because it was swapped from this black box of privacy into USDC. Nope.
Yeah. Well, if things get bad enough, then people will just have to do like peer-to-peer transactions of like fiat cash for like digital privacy tokens.
And I think the government would be okay with that level.
Yeah, well, but that's the one way that they can't stop it, right? And so the theory is that could actually, if things got bad enough, then that would happen at a large scale.